At the beginning of this week, I had very exciting plans of what I was going to do with this podcast. And then I got a backache, and that slowed me down. And then on Tuesday afternoon, I got a phone call from nursery asking me to pick up my baby. So there went Tuesday afternoon. And then on Wednesday, I got a phone call from school asking me to collect my 3-year-old. And there went Wednesday. And here we are on Friday, and I feel like I've hardly progressed in all those exciting plans. I don't know if you've had days or maybe even weeks like that. It reminds me of the phrase that I sometimes use, life happens. I know that I use that as a way to kind of explain why I haven't achieved what I wanted to achieve. But it got me thinking, why does life happen? Surely it's a good thing to progress in our goals and to achieve things. Why does it seem to happen that things crop up that distract us? And sometimes it's even just mundane things, small little things that just take our time and our energy. Why? Why do we get bogged down with the mundane? So let's look at a story that will shed some light on this. At the end of Moses' life, he was asked to give some of his, the Hebrew word is hod, some of his glory to Joshua, who was going to lead the Jewish people after him. Rashi, our commentator, comments that he gave some, but not all. And he says, Moshe was compared to the sun, and Yehoshua, Joshua, was compared to the moon. Just like the moon reflects some of the sun's light, so too Joshua reflects some of Moses' prophecy and light. Now, what's very interesting is that similarly, we're told that the generation that Moses lived was on a much higher spiritual level than the generation of Joshua. But what's very, very interesting is that Joshua's generation was the generation that was actually able to go in and conquer and own the land of Israel, when Moses' generation failed to do so. And the question begs to be answered, why is it, if Moses' generation was so great compared to Joshua's generation, why were they not able to conquer the land of Israel when Joshua's generation was? There was a big difference between Moses' generation and Joshua's generation. Moshe's generation lived in the desert. They were sustained with the manna, food from heaven. They witnessed miracles. They were living in a supernatural life. So that when they were asked to transition into the mundane life of living in Israel and becoming farmers and just living a mundane life, they were not able to do that. It was precisely Joshua's generation, because they were not living that supernatural life where they were sustained with food from heaven, where they saw these open miracles. They had a diminished light. They were able to transition into the mundane life of living in Israel. But why? Why is it necessary for them to transition into the mundane world? And I saw a meme this week that I think describes it perfectly. It said, before you commit to a relationship with someone, spend 2 hours in traffic with them. What does this mean? It means you can be going out with someone and they can seem charming, right? But what's a true test of their character is when you're stuck in traffic with them, right? When life hands you those frustrations, that is the true test of who we are as people, right? When God was sustaining the Jewish people in the desert, and traveling with them, that was a preparation for their life in Israel. But that's not the goal. The goal is not to live a spiritual life in supernatural settings, because that's rather unsurprising. The goal is to live a spiritual, godly life whilst immersed in the mundane world. There are so many applications of this, right? Who is successful in business? It's not just someone who has great ideas, right? We all know people that we sit down with them and they have these great ideas, and you're listening and you're thinking to yourself, that sounds great, but I know that you're never going to accomplish them. Why? Because they have these lofty ideals. And yes, that's the first step, but that's not what actually makes success. What makes success is, are you able to take those lofty ideas and those creative ideas and those goals, and are you able to transition into reality? Are you able to deal with a difficult coworker who's going to object to you progressing? Are you going to be able to deal with the invariable mishaps that are going to come on along the way? Similarly, there's very well-known saying that says, I was a perfect parent until I had kids. What does that mean? Right? What's changed? Before we have kids, we are very committed to the goal of what it means to be a parent and how we're going to bring our children up, and what we want to teach them and what sort of human beings we want to raise. None of that's changed once we have kids. But the test of a good parent is, how well are they able to deal with the child that they were given, the real child that they were given, not just this picture in this in our heads that we have before we have kids, of we're going to have these, cute little people who are going to sleep when we ask them to sleep and eat whatever they want, and they're just going to listen to us. But that's not real life. That's not what makes a good parent. A good parent recognizes and appreciates the child they're given and is able to respond to that reality. I'll end off with a very powerful and interesting idea. When I was teaching many, many years ago, I was teaching preschool, and someone once told me, she said, reading children books is great, but you know what's even better? Is telling them a story. And I asked her why. And she said something which is really very, very powerful. She says, when you see something, right? Seeing is a revelation. You see it and it's all at once, right? But when you hear, it's a lower level, right? You have to piece together the words, and you have to imagine the pictures in your mind. And because it's a lower level, right? The hearing versus the seeing. Right? When we have to listen, we have to put more into it. But it's precisely because we have to piece together the words and picture it in our mind that we interact with the idea, and it makes more of an impact on us. It becomes personalized, and it becomes ours. And she said, with when you're teaching children, when you read them a book, they look at the pictures and they don't really have to do anything. But when you tell them a story, they're listening, and in their mind, they have to make a picture in their mind. They have to imagine it, and because they're interacting with the material in more, because they have to listen and piece together stories and imagine the picture, it makes it more memorable for them. It's the same. When we have the initial idea, the initial thought, the excitement at the beginning of a project, it's step one. But invariably, that loss of light is going to come, whether it's the mundane things that crop up that seem to distract us. But they're not failures. It's very easy at the end of the week to look back and say, I didn't accomplish X, Y, Z. don't look at it as a failure. Look at it as an opportunity. This is an opportunity where I'm able to keep focused on the goal and make that goal practical. And that ability to do that, to keep going, even when we get bogged down by distractions or by frustrations, that is the true test of who we are. And that is how we get to success. Hope you have a fabulous week.